So I'm Max with Flatiron. We're a growth marketing agency. We've managed over $800 million over the last decade in the real money gaming space.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Heiman, CEO and co-founder of MediaNug. We're a full-service creative agency, specializes in like social first, vertical video. We just do the creative, and then a lot of our brands, we pass it off to Max to execute on the paid side. So yeah, welcome. Thanks for having us. All right, so our topic today is all around just like the new creative reality and trends and how we turn those trends into ads. Social media trends, they explode and fizzle out in like a day or two. And ad fatigue is burning faster than ever. If you've noticed your once great ads have stopped performing in a week or so, that's creative fatigue in action. In fact, TikTok advertises itself that you need to refresh ads weekly. We understand that's not like scalable for a lot of people, so we've tried to come up with solutions to really help with those quick turn assets and something that's on trend and all that. And also like trends have a tiny window of relevance, often 24 to 48 hours. Now that doesn't mean you can't in a week or so you're not going to miss it, but like really you do hit that peak in 24 to 48 hours. So by the end of this, we'll kind of show you how we turn those, rapid trends into, real money transaction using fast user-generated content, and it can be really a game changer for RMG clients and everyone else.
Awesome. So I guess first off, we need to confront the problem. Why do so many ad creatives fail, especially in real money gaming? Many teams are very slow to react. So you'll make a creative, may not get delivery for another month. The big thing, right? A hilarious meme or TikTok challenge goes viral on a Monday, but the team will wait a couple weeks before they start to put that into motion. And every minute that goes by, the algorithm needs those creatives to succeed. And by the time that your ad references that trend appears, it's fatigued and fizzled out. Creative fatigue, even when you have a great ad, doesn't last very long. The audience sees it a few times, and novelty of it wears off. Performance drops very fast. Every platform operates differently, right? What works on TikTok, where you need a creative once a week, twice a week at scale, right? The same thing on Twitter. Twitter's fatigue might be a little shorter, and different types of formats are working there. So I think the real big thing, right, is like, how do we make sure that we have relevant creative for each channel? And a lot of teams get stuck and make one ad and put it live across 4 channels, and then what's working on Snapchat doesn't work on Twitter, and the question is why? But it's because a lot of companies don't put themselves in the consumer standpoint and say, hey, what will this ad look like in a feed from a customer standpoint? And that static that works on Facebook is not gonna work in a Snapchat story or on a TikTok feed. So I think it's really just making sure that you have diversified creative and really just make sure that you have channel-specific creative for each channel. And then the last thing, a lot of creative feels fake, right? A user sees this in their feed, going back to how a customer views this, and they're gonna say, hey, we know this is an ad, they skip it. The average customer watches 2 seconds of a creative. So if you think about that, when you're putting out 15, 20-second creatives, the user is dropping off 80% of the video because that first thumb stopping power is not there. So I think really understanding trends on each platform, understanding how the creative fatigue differentiates on each channel, and then also just making sure that your content or what you're putting out from a paid standpoint feels organic to the platform, is really where you're gonna succeed here.
Cool. So, the first pillar of our creative engine is called like trend spotting. So it's all about catching and capitalizing on trends like while they're hot. Like I said, 24 to 48 hours. So here's a few ways how we do it. So it's called like our always on trend watch. We treat like trend spotting like mission control. And when I say like everyone in the company is constantly on TikTok, Snap, X, all the above, sure, it's for fun, but it is also for work. So they're monitoring what's blowing up each day. The moment we notice a theme, a meme, a challenge gaining any sort of traction that could tie to our brands, we flag it. And timing is everything. Like I said, a trend often peaks in 24 to 48 hours, and we want to be there like during that peak. So really the next step is like the real-time ideation. Spotting the trend is one step, figuring out how to spin it into an ad is the second. Very first thing we see is this like a sound. We're obviously not going to use a Beyonce song in an ad. But like, can we turn this meme, can we turn this soundbite into an ad that can actually run? And then how can we connect this trend, this dance joke, this anything to the brands that we're working with? That's kind of like the next big thing. We really kind of say like, if it's trending by breakfast, we want an idea by lunch. And it's as simple as like a Slack channel, like what's poppin', all that stuff. And we're constantly ideating on that. So we'll play a quick example of one that was trending. This was a little bit back, but I feel like everyone had maybe seen it at one point. This was done in about 2.5 hours.
Randomly giving my brother updates about my day and see what he says.
It's very native, exactly what you'd see.
I think you look at this something like this, right? Like, and it's strong because someone's going to stop at this, right? You capture them in those first 2 seconds of, some AI generated sound. It's a trending moment, so the algorithm picks it up and organic will pick up. So I think it's really finding that sweet spot of monitoring these trends and then jumping in and capturing them and making them your own with your own brand. So,
yeah, and content in hours, not weeks. Like I said, we could have added music to this. We could have made it more addy, but this is exactly the type of content you would see in your feed. So trying to relate it to the brands. For a big trend, we constantly literally might shoot that in an iPhone in our office or with our content creators, and more to come on creators next. But speed is definitely the advantage here. Like, hop on it, get the creators involved, give them the trust. Understand what the brand like will and will not say, or what you can and can't say. We all know RMG has compliance and legal and stuff, so really understanding the brand and really what you can do just to minimize that feedback. But really just being agile, fearless, not overthinking, having fun is really how you capitalize on these trends. Cool, so creators, the right creators like equal authentic content. This is just as important as any idea. Concept scripting is finding the right creators. So, not all content creators or influencers are equal to our needs. So we definitely look for like a few things. And, one is speed and reliability. This is crucial. So we maintain like a vetted roster of creators, mostly per brand, that have agreed to work on like quick turn times. We call it lightning nug. But when a trend pops and we need someone who can like whip something up really fast, with minimal scripting, these are the content creators we trust. And this doesn't have to be a huge pool. I mean, you can have 5 for one brand, 10, 15, 20. It doesn't have to be this massive pool, but just ones that you trust, that you can give them general direction, and they're gonna create something awesome. So like essentially we've built kind of a creator bullpen that we can tap into on demand. It might be a micro-influencer who's great at comedy, or a Twitch streamer with savvy memes. It just kind of depends on what the brand needs and what we want. So I'll kind of show you a quick example here. This now wasn't like a very trending thing, but the whole trending format of kind of hidden camera, that security type footage. And the reason I chose this one is because this creator, Grace, is in our kind of pool. We knew instantly she would create, she would come up with the idea. We gave her a loose script, loose idea, and she was able to execute this in a day for us. So knowing that we had Grace on here to do this, and the ad turned out awesome.
Wait, what? Yeah, look, so I just got $50 in promo on top of the win since it was my first lineup, and I only had to play $5.
Oh, I love Prize Picks. Just withdrew my winnings. It's super simple.
Wait, so withdrawals are quick? Oh yeah, they're like super quick. I mean, no stress. Prize Picks is the best. I didn't know you have Prize Picks too. I'll have to give you 5 stars.
So, we trusted her to get some talent, set up the hidden camera, the Uber camera, and execute this quick turn ad. So it was awesome. So
I think too, right? This feels very organic and to a TikTok feed, right? So you scroll this and you're like, oh, I'm gonna stop because it doesn't feel like an ad, and then you watch it and then the punchline comes at the end. So I think really building that thumb-stopping power, building that storyline, and then at the end hitting them with that whatever that offer or CTA you're looking for. But I think this checks a lot of those boxes.
And so then how do we actually, know what works best? That's where we kind of pass off the creative to Max and his awesome team, and then this is where like all the testing comes in.
Yeah, so I think really thinking about a creative test approach, right? So ultimately, what we've seen success with, right, is this winner variant challenger method, right? A winner is your top creative based on how you're looking at that, whether it's a CPA or ROAS or click-through rates if you're more upper funnel, right? A variant is a quick win, right? It's changing a color, it's changing the phone UI, it's changing images on the side. You can spin out millions of variations of your top winners, and that will just allow you to keep pumping these creative machines that need these to continue to succeed within the algorithms. And the challenger is something net new. We like to look at this, maybe you take 10% of your budget. It's something that you may not think will work, but stays on brand. And the thought is, right, if you can open up a challenger, you open up a new net normal what creative should be. So I think this approach really just of test and learn, but also building the machine in a way that you have your winners, you have quick ways to get variants, and then challengers really, which is where a UGC can come in, right? You see something trending, this is something net new. And for the example previously, right, maybe we change the order of the car, maybe you change the way they're speaking. So there's a lot of quick wins that you can get once you get that new challenger, but I think adopting this method will really allow you to scale from a creative approach. Cool. So I think really about paid media, right? So I think, at the moment, right, it's right platform, right moment. The most important thing to understand is that each platform operates completely differently. You need to make sure that you're getting in the algorithms, you're making sure that you're relevant for those algorithms. And if you're running only statics on Facebook, you're missing out all videos. If you're running only statics on Twitter, you're missing out on carousels. So I think it's really thinking about each platform individually and creating a different approach for each. Obviously, that's a big lift for a small team. But I don't think you have to go crazy and make net new creative for each one. I think it's just maybe taking some of the ads you're making and reformatting them so that you're across the channels that are most important to you as you continue to scale.
Yeah, and to that point, like you can have the same hero concept, but how do you just add a simple Snapchat black bar caption or the TikTok text? Like those small changes will make a subtle difference, and the algorithm will flag it on the back end of, those are called just element triggers that actually help perform even better.
Yeah, and I'll just add, right, like I think we jump into a lot of ad accounts when, we're going through processes, right? And what we notice, right, is there's no testing, right? So I think if you're not testing, you're gonna fatigue and you're gonna plateau, and ultimately you need creative to drive performance, and you have to be test, and you'll find new champions, and the business will continue to succeed. So I cannot emphasize the word test here enough, but 90% of brands are just not doing it because they just don't have the capabilities, but it's so important.
Cool, so, just some 5 key takeaways. If you remember nothing else, just remember these, that, speed is everything. In the era of like the blink and miss it, the attention spans are getting less and less. Timing is a competitive advantage. Whether it's that viral dance, that meme, you just have to jump on it within 1 to 2 days. And I really will emphasize, like, you can't take yourself too seriously. Like, yeah, stay on brand, keep your message and, what's important to you and all that, but like, you gotta have fun because that's what these platforms are. They're fun. And that's what, the users will resonate to. UGC, greater than polished ads, authentic, relatable content. Again, anything you're gonna see in your feed personally, like you want that ad to feel like that too. You've got to build that trust and that, with the users, and if they see something that is inauthentic, they'll know it, and you just got to be careful to not be cringy because it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and I think volume and testing, right? I've emphasized this in the 10 minutes I've been here, but test, and volume. The more you can produce, the more you can test, the more you can learn, the more you can adapt. Having an omni-channel approach, right? Being live on one channel, you're missing out on exposure across all these other platforms. In the RMG space, there's like a solid 10, 15 channels that you should be live on, and having them all live at once creates reach, and it also brings in a different type of customer. The customer on a TikTok can be completely different than a customer on Google, or a customer on Google will be different than a customer on Snapchat. So I think really having a dual approach on what channels you're running on, and then iteration, right? So those variant is really where the bread and butter is, right? You might find one, if you have a sportsbook app, right? You might find putting a winning ticket with one matchup works well, and then you see that works and drop in a couple other UI, and it's quick win. So I don't think the iteration piece is probably the most valuable, right? That variant piece, because it's a very low weight, but you could actually increase your creative productivity by just making quick changes. So yeah, I guess in summary, right? Authentic, making sure that your creative feels native to the platform. Very data driven, right? Quick wins. You could set maybe 10, 15% of your budget, find that threshold of what is statistically significant. Once it is, hey, we have a winner, let's rotate it up. And then cross-platform, right? So just making sure that you're live across multiple channels at once, because having that omni-channel approach is really valuable.
Cool. And that is really it. And one last thing is, MediaNug, we are launching a new creator marketplace called the Nugverse. So it's really powered by us, and it's our solution to fast UGC creator content at scale. We'll have a product in there, like I said, called Lightning Nug, where you can get trending videos very, very fast from creators. So this is launching very, very soon, and we'd love for y'all to try it out and give you crazy good discounts.
And I'll just add, right, like for us, right, as an agency, obviously it's a very big weight to manage a team of influencers, right? So, Adam is very resourceful for us, right? He'll see a trend, he'll say, hey, let's make this for this partner, and we scale that way, right? So I think plugging a partner in that could take some of this lightweight off you guys, like, makes so much sense, but don't take too much because we need them. But yeah,
that's it.
Thank you guys for coming out. I guess we have 3.5 minutes. I guess, does anyone have questions?
What were the small differences you said between like Instagram Reels and TikTok videos? You said there was like small changes to make.
I mean, I personally find Reels, Snapchat, and TikTok in the same bucket, right? Those stories and Reels on Facebook and Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok can, similar creative will work there. But what works on Twitter and Reddit compared to a Snapchat is going to be completely different. So I think those feed and like those stories where it feels authentic and you're seeing story placements, like those can probably use similar creative. Slight changes might work. Maybe TikTok, there's a trend that's trending, right? Like that's going to work on TikTok, but it might not work on Snapchat. So I think you could have similar creative on those three. But I'd say like a Twitter, Reddit, or a DSP compared to some of these other channels, different approach.
And I think you just always have to think of yourself. So your Instagram feed versus your TikTok feed, like what is it, right? It's very different for platform. It's exactly how you just have to think of ads. Like whatever you're seeing on TikTok, on Instagram, all that, that's how the ad should.
It's not even the ad too, right? It's like post ad, right? Like, if you put yourself as a customer and you're clicking an ad and then the landing page is broken, it's like, it's not your creative, it's the landing page. So I think it's really putting yourself in the shoe of the customer and going through each flow and saying, hey, this is working, hey, or hey, there's friction here, we need to fix this. But I think that piece gets lost, right? And then a CMO says, hey, what's going on? And you're like, our landing page has been broken for 2 weeks and no one alerted us. So, I think it's really just thinking about the full funnel from click to purchase, right? And understanding how that flow goes and creating this test and learn approach. I mean, creative is one piece and so important, especially in an iOS 14 world. But I really think the whole funnel is important and you should have that test and learn approach across the entire funnel.
Hello. I would like to understand, how do you see AI used for UGC ads on your operation?
We definitely feel it as a tool, right? We've written quick scripts with it or just quick like high-level storyboards, ideation for more like internal kind of brainstorms. We've definitely done, creative scaling tests, whether localization or dubbing and translations in different markets. That's about it. Like we haven't messed with avatars yet and that kind of stuff. And we've been dabbling in it. We're a TikTok partner, and we help them with their Symphony product a lot, giving feedback on that. But we just see it as like a great tool for that rapid iteration testing, right? You see that hero video, how can you use AI to make 10 of those right away?
And I'd also add, right, like Symphony is not going to go find the latest TikTok trend and then make an ad that feels non-AI, right? Like it's very early days. Obviously, we'll have to keep it in mind or we're going to get gobbled by it. But I think this will continue to evolve. I mean, Google launched a new model yesterday and like now there's text, right? So, but the phone UI is still broken. So I think, from a creative standpoint, there are probably places where you can make statics, right? But the phone UI needs to be swapped in. So that there are ways you can use it, but I'd say from a UGC standpoint, I don't think Symphony is going to be able to, see that one of these trends we just showed you, right, and be like, hey, let's make an ad that looks exactly like this. That's never going to happen, in my opinion.